If you're part of a team, well, this is being recorded. Please remember to select the language in which they're recording and record to your computers, not to the cloud.
And then choose to record, but only record to your computer, because it looks like we can only record one version to the cloud, and so that won't work if everybody's trying to record to the cloud. It will be on top of each other. So hopefully everyone got that. Let me know if you have questions. Ahora vamos a pasar.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to another presentation. I'm going to ask you necesitamos el link a las slides. We have 2 slides now. Bilingual slides. You can check the one in Spanish or in other languages. One moment, please.
So you can go to the chat and find the slide in your language. Van al chat y encuentran la presentación en su idioma.
Ok. Bueno,
Okay.
estoy muy feliz estar aquí.
I'm very happy to be here today with everyone who's joined us. And we named this event Technology in Action, because one of the main goals is to launch tools we've been working on for, well, over a year, maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And the tools that we are launching today are the result of collaborative work, and many of our collaborators are here today. You're going to hear them later. They will tell us about the process of developing these tools and how they were tested, what we tested them. But we're going to begin. We began working around a question.
Formo parte del laboratorio del feminismo y datos.
It's part of the laboratory of data, so it's applied. We like to build, design these tools and other things. We began with a question related to the design, and that is in which way tools, interactive tools for automatic design and artificial intelligence can help and support the work of the civil society to recover the data on feminicide. In our recent book, Data Feminism, that I did in cooperation with Lauren Klein, we analyzed the data on feminicide from forgotten data. These data were not collected, and those that were collected are not very good and are not available for the public. On this book on feminism, we tell the story of a very important person in the community located in Mexico. She has been collecting data from 2016, and this monitoring on feminicide activists is a way of challenging those data that have been lost. So it's a very good example of recollection and counter data that we have in feminism. But nevertheless, activists have to face different challenges in this collection of data on feminicide. So that makes us wonder about this implementation and how can we build tools that can support this important work. So to begin this project, we want to understand how and why these feminist groups have been working, and we made a list of all these groups that we found. And now we have more 150 projects in this list in different parts of the world. For the moment, most of them are in Latin America, where feminist groups have been working a lot, so that feminicide is in the public agenda. But there are many other groups that have been working a lot. Some of these groups monitor specific cases of feminicide, but with other interaction cases like racism. So there are other institutes that monitor indigenous women that have been murdered or are missing. Then you have Data Lab in Brazil that is working with transgender. So these efforts for monitoring are in all continents all over the world, but we are trying to focus on in the American continent. So in order to have a better understanding of these informatic tools for used by activists, we had different research investigation sessions and co-design and participation. We had 25 groups of activists. We also had interviewed different people and groups in 14 countries, especially in the Americas and in Kenya, one group, and also in Spain. So from these interviews, we were able to we had to face huge challenges in personal levels. As you can see here in this slide, there were some patterns that we obtained from these interviews: missing data. Some groups talk about the bias that they have in the media when reporting these cases, and a bias also when non-informing about these cases. So related for indigenous women, for example. Some other groups inform that the results are not relevant because in the Google search, most of the groups have problems regarding the capacity. And this work is very emotional. It's a very strong activity.
Okay. Designing tools to help with these challenges. And now I'm going to present Elena. Elena is going to talk a bit about this co-design. Hello, everyone. Well, for those of you who know me, I'm Elena Suarez. Those of you who don't know me, I keep the record Feminicide Uruguay. I've been doing that since 2015. And when I got together with Silvana and Catherine, we were really eager to develop these tools to help, well, people like me who do these, do these records. We do it in a very, it's voluntary work, and it's very exhausting work. It's monitoring feminicides. And for this stage of the process, once we finished many interviews and we had a clear idea of the things that we might begin thinking about, considering, we were invited by Dawn from Women Count USA, Dawn Wilcox, with us today, and I was invited too. We participated in these sessions, we did brainstormings. We thought, we considered all the possibilities and many things. For example, the possibility of doing something that was entirely automatic, that would be able to do everything that we were doing, but just based on technology, and then other methods. Well, many different ideas. And from these sessions, we got two key ideas that the team at Data Plus Feminism Lab began to develop. And those two key ideas were around the gathering, collecting data and filtering the very many press articles that we have to read, activists have to read to classify data events as feminicides or not. And then the other thing was to facilitate data collection. I'm going to say just that now because, well, it changed later, but at first those were the two key ideas: how to filter the many articles we had to read, and how to quickly identify information that we found was interesting. And once we had these better, versions of the tools, the pilot was presented to other groups, or also here for groups. We are also going to talk about their experiences in our panel session. And we worked for about 2 months around many areas. For example, we trained an algorithm. We learned how to do that, how to train an algorithm to understand what we think about feminicide, what we think about what is feminicide. And we had many feedback sessions. And I think that one of the most fulfilling, satisfying parts about this process, apart from developing tools that would be good for all of us in our different projects, another thing was to, well, get to know each other and being able to generate those connections. This process of getting to know each other a bit better, to get to know what everybody's working on, and possibly in the future be able to collaborate more in other aspects of our work and the work that each of us is doing in their own countries. And I think that's just about it. Catherine is coming back. Great, thank you. We're going to introduce that has been and led the panel for activists. We are going to have a workshop where you may learn and you have make calculations with these tools as you may find interesting. One of the tools that was part of this co-design project was what we call as highlighter. And then this is an extension of the Chrome browser, and you can install it, and it works to work when in the stage where you're reading the different news articles about a violent situation, and you are scanning to obtain data to be included in your database. And what the tool does is to highlight all the names and places and dates and numbers that appear in the article, so you can quickly see which this information is. And these are the data that generally activists include in their database and related to one specific event. You can also make it more personalized regarding words. And then the pilot with the 7 groups, we added many other things. We improved many things, as for example, the highlighter. You have it on in a second place. It's always on. And we made some improvements in Spanish because in the beginning it was working rather well, but now it's better. We highlighted the places, numbers, and now there is a function here that activists require, those who are monitoring a case. So in this case may be relevant to another group. So you can share the information. So you can share the information with the other group. So this is for now the moment. It's rather simple, this tool. And the important thing to say now is that the tool shall be in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. We are very excited about this. So well, the other tool, the second tool, is an alert
system for the email. This system helps activists to detect new cases of feminicide or related to gender violence, or to follow up previous cases that you have been following. More or less, this tool is more or less like Google Alerts, but it's specifically prepared for monitoring feminicide cases. So we are trying to make it more important to the work done by activists. So to begin, the activists group prepare a database. You will have, as we have here on the slide, what we are monitoring in Argentina is quite similar to Google Alerts. You can configure term search related to the geography, and you can choose the frequency on which you want to receive these email alerts. So it can be once a day, once a week, and this frequency, it's you who determines this alert frequency. So the great differences between email alerts and Google Alerts is that in Google does not reveal the sources of information, and UNITE has local sources of information and international as well. But on the other side, our tool is quite clear regarding the sources, and you can add sources of information. If you know that the source is to be trusted, like a blog or something like that. Another thing is that our alert filters all the articles through a classifier of automatic learning that you have in the background that is made to classify all the articles related to feminicide or not. So the alert is going to give you, in most cases, the results will be more relevant. Finally, another feature that most activists requested is that our system joins in groups the articles related to one same case. So that it was one of the requests of activists participating in this tool. It's quite difficult to develop a system in order to support groups that work in different contexts, different kind of violence, different languages. So what we made is our best effort to cover all these, and there appeared several problems related to this. So we have to face that not all groups use the same definition of feminicide. The groups monitor different geographies, different diversities, and different countries, provinces, and other groups like sovereign bodies are transnational. So it's quite different as regards the geography and languages as well. So we have to think about the different languages involved, and as well as some groups that monitor some kind of feminicide cases that are very specific to their location. And so indigenous women, and then you have murders, LGBT, and related to police violence, and what resulted from this pilot project. We are still working on this, is that the classificator tool is working rather well to classify all these cases. So we are still working on this with all these groups, so we can move forward and help in the classification of cases.
Y bueno, sí, hicimos muchas mejoras del piloto, así que ahora puedes...
It worked a lot with the pilot, so you can find cases, articles from the past in the dashboard, and you can also, regarding the importance and the relevance, the user can train the system choosing which are the articles that are relevant. And this will help to help the artificial intelligence to learn and improve the results that we want to get. So it's us who has to train this artificial intelligence. As I said before, we continue working with indigenous people, mujeres de negro, and some other groups. So, okay, this is the description of the tools. I hope that all of you can participate in the workshop that we will have later today, and you will be able to use the tool, make the calculations and all the setup information about these tools. So thank you so much. So I hand the floor to Elena or Silvana, I don't remember. Angeles. So Catherine, thank you so much about this presentation. Please don't forget to include Pat as interpreter. Now the floor to Angeles.
Hello, everybody. My name is Angeles. I'm part of the team that has been mentioned before. We're going to begin with our presentations. Can you hear me? Can you hear? Okay, we're going to begin with Marina de Oliveira. She comes from the African American Policy Forum. Marina, you can share your screen if you want. You can share your presentation, or you can just begin to tell us about your work. Okay, muchas gracias.
Okay. Yes, we can. Let's see if I can share my screen. Just 1 second. Hi, everyone. My name is Marina Reis. I'm from Brazil, but I'm based in LA. So it's very early in the morning here. Good morning. So first of all, I would like to thank folks from Data Against Femicide for inviting me today. We worked together in the pilot in the beginning of the year, so it's great to be in community and to see all of you again. So as I said, my name is Marina. I work as a research assistant at the African American Policy Forum, AAPF, and I work specifically with the Say Her Name campaign, and that's what I'll be sharing today. So a brief presentation of the campaign. So the Say Her Name campaign was launched in December 2014 to advocate on behalf of Black women killed by the hands of the police. The goal of the campaign is to elevate the names and stories of Black women, girls, and femmes who have been victimized by racist police violence. So the reality is that Black women are killed by the police in many of the same ways that our Black brothers are killed and brutalized. But the stark difference is that Black women's vulnerability do not gain the same traction and the same attention within the mainstream movements against police brutality. And there are many reasons for that. One of them being that historically, the very definition of what is police violence has been constructed from the experiences of Black men. So Black women are erased from this conversation. And that's precisely the type of narrative that Say Her Name seeks to change, because saying their names and telling their stories is the very first step to demand accountability and justice for all Black lives, for all Black lives across the gender spectrum. That's our goal. So one of the key elements in our advocacy for a more robust framework to understand police violence is intersectional research. So in this sense, we have an ongoing project of collecting data related to women who have been killed by the police. As of now, we were able to track more than 200 murders. And of course, we know that there are many names and many stories that we are not able to track, precisely because of how difficult it is to have access to reliable data, right? Especially because here we are talking about forms of violence that are committed by the state. So this project, by its own nature, is a very difficult, it's a difficult one. So media do not talk about women being killed by the police and have access to official documents that provides any information. It's very difficult. But with time, we have developed some strategies to address this problem, and I believe I have more time to talk about it in the next section. And the tools developed by Data Against Femicide really help us in many aspects here. So we engage in this intersectional research to raise public awareness that Black women are killed too. And we tell their stories in many different ways. We use different tools. We tell their stories in protest. We use social media to tell their stories via quick graphics on Instagram. We have a very comprehensive map, state by state, with some pictures and some names. We also have written projects. So we first released a report in 2015 with some of these stories, and we also have a book coming next year, hopefully, that's gonna do a deep dive into some of these stories. We also use art. Art is one of our tools to raise public awareness. We have a play, a Say Her Name play, and this year, in collaboration with Janelle Monáe, a song, we released a song in support of the campaign. So tracking those stories and conducting this intersectional research is important, because once we understand what happened and what made these women vulnerable in that specific situation, we are better equipped to think about and to advocate for specific and targeted policies that can make a difference. For example, through this research, we were able to identify that Black women are killed in very similar ways as Black men, in the streets, in their cars, outside their homes, but also in very specific ways, in very specific gender ways. So for example, especially in the private space, in their homes, when officers are called to perform welfare checks, when officers are called to respond to someone in distress, Black women are disproportionately likely to suffer the sometimes lethal consequences of that encounter. So in these slides, you can see some of our specific demands and policy recommendations. And paying attention to that and understanding the specific dynamic puts us in a better position to advocate for specific policies that could make the private space safer for Black women, and the public space safer for Black women and safer for everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marina, for sharing your work with all of us. Ahora la siguiente es Elena, de Feminiside
Next
Uruguay.
presenter is Elena from Feminicide Uruguay. Elena, can you hear me?
Hola. Yeah, hello, I'm here. I will share my screen with you. Just a moment, please. Just a moment. Hello. It was really nice to listen to Marina's presentation. You will see the contrast of this work from one group already structured with claims, and someone by herself working from my place. My place is Uruguay, and you may have feminicide data from 2014 as a member of a group that was formed in November 2014 for La Coordinadora de Feminicidio. In Uruguay, I coordinated independently when I started to make the map of all this.
At first, the recording of cases, at first it was like an activist thing. We were doing it to do our protests every time there was an event of feminicide. That was the idea at first, but then I continued with it in a way to position myself and to locate this phenomenon within the country. There's one of the women who does this in Ciudad Juarez, Yvonne, was telling me that she began doing this record because she wanted to understand, she wanted to know where she was standing. And to me, to begin doing this map of feminicide in Uruguay was a way to understand where I'm standing and to understand where we all stand as feminist activists, as a country. This is a country where great changes are needed. There are areas where it's more intense. I do this work on my own. There are other groups in Uruguay who also keep record of these cases. But my interest in this is to produce verifiable sources. So apart from the mapping, what I also do is I make public this database where I record the cases. It's a database that, if possible, whenever possible, includes the names of the women. Trans women as well are included here, because that is a way of creating memory. It's like a memorial for these women and these trans women who were murdered by violence, male violence. And the tools that we've been developing, as I said before, are really helpful to reduce, the emotional labor, the emotional work. I believe that collecting feminicide data is the labor of care, is a work of care of women who are no longer here, but it is also a work of care of the movement, because we produce resources that we can all use to generate actions and to be able to demand states to address this phenomenon and to stop ignoring it. And in that work of care, as so many other labors of care, well, of course, there's no payment for this, and it doesn't have a lot of recognition. For example, there have been events in which the Uruguayan state has used this database to verify cases, but there is no dialogue, no communication between the state and the activists we are keeping these records. I'm going to be very brief. I'm just going to leave it here, because as an individual activist, more than producing, what I do is produce this source, but I'm not doing many other things for this, apart from this, and apart from doing my PhD, which I'm doing to try to understand what happens when this data moves around in social networks. But regarding the specific work of recording the data and using the tools, that's all I have to say for now. So thank you very much, and we will continue again in the questions.
Thank you, Elena, for sharing this work with all of us. Now we will give the floor to Virgiana from Missing Indigenous Women. Virgiana, please. Yes, from Sovereign Bodies Research.
Você pode começar.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Viviana. I serve as the research coordinator for Sovereign Bodies Institute, also known as SBI. SBI is a nonprofit indigenous organization that gathers research and knowledge on gender and sexual violence against indigenous peoples, specifically women, girls, boys, men, trans, and two-spirit folks. We are also, it's known by its acronym MMIWG2 or MME. The goal of our organization is to enhance investigations and prosecution capacity
of law enforcement and tribal state courts in responding to cases and collaborating across jurisdictions to reduce the rates of MMIWG2. Our organization is based in Eureka, which is a small city in Humboldt County, California. Sovereign Bodies Institute centers its approach to research and services according to the needs and wants of survivors and families. We believe that
Nosotros creemos que las respuestas a los problemas, a las comunidades, a los problemas que experimentan nuestras comunidades, tienen que ver con esta gente. Nosotros damos servicios de apoyos a víctimas de violencia. Tenemos una serie de servicios directos que podemos ofrecer. Mi trabajo en Sovereign Bodies tiene que ver con nuestra base de datos. Entonces rastreamos allí casos de, desaparecidas. Nuestra base de datos incluye información sobre las víctimas, el tipo de violencia que experimentaron.
Enforcement and the justice system respond, and if the violence is tied to any larger issues such as domestic violence or trafficking. I found the tool fairly easy to use. We really enjoy the custom option because we can, specify what we want to highlight. Sometimes we do have issues with the tool on having to turn it back on and off because it won't always scan the website. And that is all for me. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Viridiana, for sharing your work and this presentation with all of us. Voy a pasar a la siguiente persona que va a presentar.
I'm going to give the floor to the next person to will share the work of the group with us. La agrupación de mujeres de Rosario, Marta Pérez y Flor. Florencia. Is any of you can activate your mic so we can talk, hear what you're saying? Good morning, everyone. I'm very, very, very happy to participate in this experience. I am Marta Perez. I'm the coordinator for Mujeres de Negro, Women in Black. It's an anti-military group, feminist group, and that got here to Uruguay, to Argentina in 2011. And our activity began in 2012. In the beginning, we didn't make any collection of information, but we realized that our activity was to accompany people in violence situations and the families of these victims of feminicide. At some point, we said that we have to recourse to the society and the justice. So once a month, we made this stop at the corner of Córdoba and Moreno, and we show the signs with the names of the victims in the province of Santa Fe. On November 25th, we have a similar activity in the different provinces with the names of all the victims that have been up to the date. It has 250, 300 victims of transfeminicide, feminicide victims. In the beginning, there was only one observatory, the Casa del Encuentro, that gave the information, the number, but what we needed, the names, so we can carry out these activities. So we made our collection of information, and at the same time, we had some problems related to the age, the relationships between the perpetrator and the victim, the children underage or not, and they had to do with all these regulations. If it was a trans crime, it was a hate crime. There were many, many other things that were appearing when collecting all this information. And we wanted to expand all this information and reflect it on the information that we were sharing. We did all this on the research on the newspaper, and the emotional burden here is huge. Only in Buenos Aires, you have 44 newspapers online to check. So let's go expand this to the 23 provinces. It would take us 1 month in order to get the information of one case in all the newspaper. So this tool for us has been marvelous. It saves a lot of time, saves the emotional burden, and we have all the information and enables us to follow up the cases. And it begins when the trial begins, the sentence for the perpetrator. It's really wonderful. It has been a great experience that we were able to use. So this is everything for us. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marta, for sharing with us all your experience within this pilot tool and the usage of the tools. Now, the next one is Maria Victoria. They have the project Mumala, the observatory. Please, can you share your screen?
I think Betiana just sent you the link. Oh, I think she's going to share it. Well, it's a very brief presentation. I just want to say we are Mumala. It stands for Mujeres Matria Latinoamericana. We're a political and social organization that began. We've been using this name since 2009. We had other names before. What we do, we've been doing this officially like this since 2015 because we wanted to make visible the data of what was going on in Argentina, where we've had very iconic, very important cases. This big demonstration called Ni Una Menos, Not One Less, took place in 2015, which was so meaningful for the feminist movement and the LGBT movement. Our observatory is present in most of the provinces in Argentina. So that Marta was mentioning, how difficult it is to search data. We do it through digital media or the press. And it's very important to mention that we have this participation in the territory. It's very exhausting and exhaustive work. We do it together. It's collaboratively, and it's a daily thing. We do it every day because the data just keep coming. They are very important in order to do our work. And I must say that the tool was really helpful in that regard. It was very good for us to be able to have all the data, even from media which it was hard for us to access at the time, sometimes, subscriptions or and also because of the territory because the country is a federation. Mumala, our group, apart from this observatory, what we do, our main idea, our main area, our main goal is to be able to reflect this data, to be reflected in public policy. That's what we need, and this is the way we can put pressure, have some leverage before the different states to be able to report these cases of violence and be able to demand that this be considered an emergency, and to be able to present projects for public policy that are relevant for the whole of the country in order to prevent feminicide and trans-feminicide in Argentina. Also in our record, and the record that we were able to do even better thanks to this tool. We have statistics for feminicide, but we also have statistics for hate crimes, feminicide, suicides, children, teenagers who are left, who become orphans, deaths from clandestine abortions. Only last year, we were able to get this law, this act to allow interrupting the pregnancy. We also have cases of violent deaths of women, transvestites and trans people that are not necessarily associated. There's not always an emotional bond or relationship to the perpetrator, but are more to do with the extreme violence and vulnerability faced by people related to gender issues and diversity, and that there's one specific aspect of hate crime against the LGBTQ+ communities. And specifically what we do what we try to do is to show, to make visible, to create awareness about these things that happen, so that, or precisely so, Latin America and the world, so we can eradicate gender-based violence once and for all. So thank you for this and for this space and for the tool, which is well, so important, and it's fundamental to be able to collect data in this context.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing this presentation with us and participation in the pilot of this tool. Now, the next one is Dan Wilcox from Dan.
Dan, I think you have to unmute yourself.
You have.
There we go.
Yes. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Don. Gracias.
I'm just looking where to share my screen. Hi, I'm Dawn Wilcox, and I'm a registered nurse in the United States. In 2016, I began trying to find information on all women who were murdered in the United States, and found that we had huge gaps in data. And I began this work and do it pretty much independently. And of course, in the United States, we have large amounts of data that we're processing. And, you know, I do have volunteers who send in cases for inclusion, which is very helpful, but it's an enormous amount of work, and the highlighter and the Femicide alert have made that work much easier to help reduce the amount of emotional labor trying to find cases. So I was often reading about other violent, incidents that didn't have anything to do with my work. I'm going to drop this PDF into the chat, but I just wanted to show basically this work has enabled me to find data that often the government in the United States does not delve into very deeply, if at all. And, in my databases, I collect multiple pieces of data that can be used by others who are interested in this work, such as criminologists, and it's open source, so anybody can look at the information that I've collected. It's going to be a lifelong project because I am going back to 1950 and trying to find every woman and girl who was murdered by a man. So it's work that certainly will continue on after I am gone, hopefully. And recently I read an article about, with an argument that the government should, in the United States, should set up a femicide watch. And my feeling is that if, our government really cared about this issue, they would have already done that. And I really feel like the work that we are doing across the world on this issue needs to remain grassroots, and it needs to be done by people who deeply care about this issue. I want just not statistics, but information about the relationship between the perpetrator and the victim. I want to know things about that woman, that humanize her. So I'll include information about like her favorite color, or that she loved cooking, or she had a funny laugh, or and I always try to include a photo of every woman. So, this is just one presentation I made, and I will link that because I think it does help if we can put our data together and, share it with the public, because many people don't understand that femicide is a particularly ignored form of violence against women. And in my country, even the word femicide is not routinely used, and most people don't know what that means. So I am very grateful to be included in this project, and I'm so happy to meet all of you, and my sisters in doing this very important but very hard and often dark work. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for sharing your work with us as well. Our last participant is Rosa Pereira, and she is from the organization Black Feminicide US. Rosa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hear you very well.
Great. So you can start sharing your work with us.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be a part of this panel. And, you know, as Dawn had said, this is very much needed, but it can be dark work. My work with Femicide primarily focuses on the Black community in the United States. Within the Black community, there are a lot of cultural issues that are overlooked within the community. Black women within the Black community are taught to be race first, and we're taught that our issues come second to issues such as racism and issues that primarily involve Black men as it relates to law enforcement involved killings, as well as racism. I started my work back in about the end of 2018, and I was inspired by Dawn Wilcox of Women Count USA. I consider her to be a mentor to me because I value her work, but I saw a need within the Black community in America where we don't recognize femicide. Although Black Americans may be aware that femicide happens in places like South America, Africa, and Asia, there is a refusal to acknowledge that femicide is indeed a systematic issue within our communities. As of today in the United States, I have counted 1,310 Black women and girls that have been murdered across the US. When I talk to different people about this issue, they'll be in shock and they'll say, are these numbers, are you sure these are American numbers? Are you sure that these are not numbers from Africa? And I have to tell them, no, this is actually happening in the United States. Last September 25th, I held a very initial march to bring to the public, especially Black women's awareness that femicide is an issue that we need to start tackling within our community. Unfortunately, you know, it was very small, but it was the initial march. And, you know, this is something like Dawn that I hope to continue year after year. And I really hope that this work does continue long after I am gone. Again, in our community, we don't like to acknowledge that Black women and girls are being killed in such a way. And in fact, at the end of 2020, my data and research had pointed to that really near the October part that we were being murdered every 6 hours within the community. On September 28th of this year, the FBI actually validated my findings and stated that indeed, in the Black community in America, a Black woman or girl is being murdered every 6 hours. As of today, with my own independent research, we're actually at every 5.5 hours now. And I believe by the time the FBI releases their data, which they do every September, it would not surprise me if we're at every 4.5 hours. We will be marching close to the count that South Africa is experiencing right now, which is currently every 4 hours. And unfortunately, within my community, because there is such a cultural pushback, I have a hard time getting word out to the movers and shakers, such as politicians and community leaders, because this is really, truly an embarrassment to the Black community, but this is something that we need to come together to combat and to address. And again, I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for even allowing me to be among you all. And I do consider you sisters in the struggle.
Thank you very much, Rosa,
Thank
for
you.
joining us and present your work. Bueno, hemos concluido con la.
So this is the end of the presentations in the early session. Thank you everyone for sharing this work, everything, and share the work that you are doing and sharing it with us. So now we will go to the discussion panel that will be held with the different panel members. And in that case, we are going to change into English, so it's a better understanding between us.
Our panel of discussion with you all, and I'm going to change or shift from Spanish to English to facilitate some of the questions. Okay. Entonces, para empezar, nos gustaría.
So to begin, we would like first to talk about the challenges that you have to collect the information for monitoring in the databases. So we can begin with the organization Mujeres de Negro. Which are the challenges that you had over time for this collection? Marta, Flor?
Yes. As I was telling you before, the major issue we have is, well, going through the media, the press and online papers to find feminicide cases, finding their age, the children they had, that would take so much time, and we were never able to actually complete our database. We always had information missing because some of the media don't go back. They just erase the previous data, and it takes us so long to find the new ones that we would lose these. So this has offered us a very important solution. I think it's the first time that we keep our database up to date, because we get the alert, I check the news, I upload it, and that's it. And so our database is updated. That's very important for us, because, for example, tomorrow we're going before the court, as we usually do every year, to represent the exact number of feminicides that took place during the year. It's a very large number, it's a very large figure, and if our database is not up to date, it will be very hard. So this has solved that problem, and it also helped with the emotional burden, how time-consuming it was. We used to take down notes on paper and then see what we included, but now it's automatic. It's a very good tool, at least especially for us, because what we try to do, our main goal is to put pressure on justice, on the authorities. That's what we're going to do tomorrow in court. I don't know if any of the girls here, Nadia or Flor, I don't know if you sent this PowerPoint presentation where we very briefly describe the activities that we do, the actions we do with the data that we collect, because it's not just to do this. There are many people who also do this, have these observatories who keep records, but what we try to do with that is to make sure that people, civilian population, but also justice, also the courts, to make people see that it's not just a code number, it's not just 250 women, it's women who had a family, who had a project for their lives. There was a life story for each of them. And so to us, it's very important to represent them, even though it's something hard, because some of the images we show, some of the graphic art, people are shocked, people feel uncomfortable, but that's exactly what we want to do. We want to shock people so that people become aware and take action and realize that this is a genocide. It's a genocide of women, whether they be it's hate crimes against LGBT population, these suicides, there are women who are induced to suicide. We could say it's like a slap in the face of society and of the courts, so that they can see what is really happening. So those were our greatest challenges. First of all, finding as much information as possible so we could create awareness and show society and courts and justice, and of course the demands, because the courts do not care about gender, do not prioritize any sort of measures to prevent feminicides. Usually perpetrators do not obey restriction orders or any of those measures, and nobody does anything about that, and that ends in feminicide. And sometimes also there are many cases in which there's sexual abuse, and they also end in suicides because women take their own lives. Girls, 11, 10, 11-year-olds were abused by their fathers, stepfathers, or other relatives. So those are suicides, but it's also, we count them, it's also part of what we count. And those were the main challenges that we faced.
Thank you, Marta. Anyone else from the same group to share anything with us, more information? Elena? Beyond everything that Marta said, is like a broader vision. There is something that is very important to bring on the table, is that all of us, at some extent, we had to learn to use some tools that we didn't know how to use them. I'm lucky enough because I am a web designer, so some technology issues are very easier to me, but other aspects of my life I had to change and train. All of us are getting training in different aspects that are new and updating with everything. So it's a great challenge for all of us. Time increases, and the dedication that we have to dedicate to these tools and changing all the screens, the things that we use every day. Thank you, Elena. Now, next is to the sources of information that you use for recollection of this data. One of the more difficult things for our team is to build the system that has to do with indigenous women, or that were killed, or Black women killed in different situations. So these ways of violence are very important and very hard to obtain the data because of the situations. So the next question is for SBI. And the question is
partial coverage media do of indigenous women cases?
Yeah, so Indigenous women are taken at alarming rates that receive little media attention or public interest. This causes most cases to remain unsolved despite their families' best efforts in reporting their missing and murdered loved ones. The lack of media also causes government agencies, law enforcement, researchers, and even some organizers to neglect that the issue is prevalent within the state. The lack of media coverage maintains violence and perpetuates negative stereotypes against Indigenous folks. And the media coverage we do get possesses certain code, language, or words that portray obscured meaning or behavior that can cause victim blaming. For example, you might see the words high-risk lifestyle in articles, which becomes a code language that the victim is engaged in sex work and or is using substances or has an unsheltered living situation. We also get coverage from reservations, and they kind of produce violence language as well, and they bolster the stereotypes and create this perception that tribal lands are violent environments. And again, this violent language engages in racism, misogyny, and racial stereotyping. A lot of articles also make excuses for the perpetrator. They misgender individuals, and this all provides false information on the case, and it can make it confusing for law enforcement and hard on the families. But also it creates a popular narrative that sex work and domestic violence are the root causes of why our women go missing and murdered, and that is not the case. There's a number of intersecting issues that leads to those events.
Thank you, Viridiana. And elaborating a little bit more on this topic about media sources, Mariana, could you can you talk about your usage of both new media sources and semi-official sources of data? What does the news media miss in the case of your work?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I'm grateful to talk after Viridiana, because she covered many of the challenges that we are also facing with the Say Her Name and the type of tracking that we do. So mainstream media does not cover cases of Black women who have been killed by the police, and when there is any coverage, disinformation usually reinforces myths and the stereotypes that reinforces subordination of Black women. So they're usually blamed by their own deaths in mainstream media. So it's very difficult to rely on their narrative. And for this project, semi-official sources of data was very essential. I can explain a little bit of the step-by-step process. So we rely heavily on fatal encounters, which is a database, a comprehensive and searchable national database that collects people killed during interactions with police. And this database allows you to apply specific filters such as gender, age, location, agency involved, cause of death. So there are many categories. It's very comprehensive in that sense. So our first step was to go use this database and create and generate a general list of using these filters, like so African American, women, transgender women as well, and we would create this list, and then we would cross-check this information using, the internet in general. So here, I think specifically, so you're looking for the details, right? So we wanted to not only have the names, but also have a brief description about, to talk about what happened in their interaction. And so in the second step, we used, internet in general, and specifically like small journals or independent media platforms, independent blogs. There are some blogs that are like community-based and they report issues in the community. And some of these blogs, they do they do provide some information about Black women's interaction with the police. So yeah, so I think at this point, the tools developed by Data Against Feminicide really helped us in this sense, because especially the highlighting tool. So as you guys explained, this highlight tool is something that you put in your browser, and it highlights specific words that are pre-selected. For example, for us, the words were Black, women, police, and we also try to track accountability. So accountability was some of the words that we selected. Mental health, because as I explained previously, Black women are disproportionately killed in their own homes when they call for help, when they're having a mental health crisis. So that was one keyword that we also used in this tool to be able to provide a description and to really understand what happened in that situation.
Thank you very much, Marina, for sharing with us.
Okay, we're going to change now. We're going to talk about intersectionality. We would like to learn about the experience of Momala. In your database, you collect not only gender identity, but also other aspects of intersectionality. Can you please share some of the categories that you collect and maybe some example, and why is that important to you? Yes. Well, this was growing as we realized the need to report other things. Now, the intersectionality approach, well, we have women who are pregnant in prostitution, who have migrated from another country, from another province, who have women who have disabilities, if they belong to any indigenous community or native population, if they had any issues with drugs or mental health issues, or living homeless, they were homeless. All these situations, we thought it would be very important to make them visible, precisely because these specific situations allow us to put content to the data, to be more exhaustive, to be able to, well, as we mentioned earlier, that policies we still need new policies, but we need to have like hard, like real data. The reality is that victims of feminicide, in this case, this is what we're talking about. We also see in our work, well, for the past 2 years, we began collecting information about attempts feminicide. I mean, extreme violence that does not end, does not result in death, but and that's very important too, also considering what Marta was saying. By finding these new bits of information that doesn't often appear in the news, but we go and find it, we go and try and get this information in the media. This allows us to, like, you know, open to see the big picture a bit more. For the past 2 years, we've been including these suicides, these feminicide suicides, for example. These appeared in the media as suicides, or maybe as these pacts, you know, like as were a couple. But then afterwards, during the investigation or later, or maybe the family, we have other information, explanations, they have other, they would allow us to realize that there was a different interpretation of what had happened in those situations. And one of the most important things that we do in the observatory is to investigate the data. I mean, see how that information can be used to, how that piece of news will become a more exhaustive piece of information. I would like to let Betiana explain this a bit more. She's more experienced. She's our main coordinator. She's going to explain this in more detail.
Hi, Betiana. Can you listen to us, Betiana? Are you listening? I think, okay, we have to let her use the mic. Okay, so now, can you listen to me? You cannot see me. Thank you so much for this experience. It's very valuable. I would like to add something else, just one thing. In accordance with what has been said, the possibility and the opportunity of doing that territories have their voice, that the context that have been located, they speak out, that they talk about this violence, unequal situations suffered by women, by trans people, lesbian, all over the region. We have the opportunity to have an observatory at federal level. It's not centralized, it's not in the capital of the country, but it's located in 20 different provinces. That is the political division of our country in particular, different small states. And the truth is that these small and 20 groups, subgroups, these group works formed by activists, feminist activists, and who have been trained in these matters regarding violence against women, and they collect and enable about an evaluation that is within context and specifically located in territory, because we think that we are undergoing an outburst of feminism that is very massive, but it has not been like this before. Feminism has been mainly related to the educated levels, but now it gets everywhere around the world, and we have to continue working. So we have to work on the databases that we consider popular because they are in the territory, in the far away places, far away from the educated levels. So thank you so much. Thank you, Betiana. Flor, you wanted to ask something, is to say something related to this question?
Hello, yes. Well, Nadia has also raised her hand. I wanted to say something about what we do. Apart from what Victoria said, we share, well, the same intersectionality approaches. We also gather data. Apart from what you mentioned, we also collect data about women who have driven to suicide, to committing suicide. We believe that there's a very thin line between suicide and feminicide in these cases, but in most cases it's not easy or possible to confirm it. Can you hear us? I think that she's breaking up. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. When Flor comes back, she can continue. We have our next question. Thank you, Momala, for sharing your experience. Now, we would like to know about the efforts. This question is a bit for Rose and Dawn. It has to do with your emotional work.
Mental load can technological tools optimize? Dawn, de pronto puedes empezar tú.
Do you want to go first, Rosa?
I didn't quite hear the question. Can it be repeated?
Yes, I can repeat it. Considering your work is an individual effort, how much work and mental load can technological tools optimize?
Oh, okay, that's really good. I'm glad you asked that. It really cuts down on a lot of the searches that I do, because as you said, my work is really individualized. Since using the program, I'm able to put in keywords, and as you know, when we first started it had a little kink, but now it's really starting to speed up the process. It's doing what, you know, we wanted it to, at least for me, because when, as a filter, just like I forget who was speaking and was saying how it was kind of hard to decipher, like Native Americans, it would put us in Black women. If you're other than a white woman, it kind of made you an ambiguous person. But now when I put in information, it's a speedier process. Prior to this tool, I was literally spending hours, because this is how dedicated I am to this work. I was spending like every waking hour. Literally, I would do it while I was working. I would do it when I would come home, you know, as long as I was at home. And so it could actually be anywhere from 12 to 14 hours a day that I was actually doing this. Now, I would actually say my work with this tool has been cut in half. I would say it's been cut in half. My daughters are much happier. I'm getting more rest than I was prior to this tool. I'm able to participate in more leisure activities. And so for me, my mental health has been impacted very greatly in a positive way, because before, because I was working on it at every waking moment, I was living and breathing, and you know, I would remember the victims, think of their families. It was real. It's really personal work. But now I have time to sit back, reflect, and concentrate on my family. And I'm actually now in school getting an advanced degree. So that lets you know how I'm now able to feel like I'm able to be normal. So I actually appreciate this tool, and I definitely will continue using it. I'm trying to tweak it so that it'll cut my time down even more.
Thank you very much, Rosa. Now I want to ask Dawn a question about the future. What tools or technological developments would you like to see in the future in relation to feminicide data?
Wow. I would love to see additional sources added. For instance, most of the data I get is from news articles. And so journalism is extremely important to that effort. But I also find data and information about women's murders by men in places like medical examiners that may have databases that are open to the public. Like Fort Worth, Texas has a database that goes all the way back to 2003 and lists cause of death. And so at least I can get a name, you know, and I can see what the cause of death is. And then I can go and look for past news articles. And the work I do is a little different because I'm dealing, first of all, with so many cases. I'm documenting women of all races and relationships to men, not just domestic violence. And so it's a huge amount of data. So, you know, for instance, 2018 was almost 2,000 women so far. So finding a way to be able to kind of scrape data from other places like Gun Violence Memorial, which is, you know, a massive database that lists practically everybody who's killed in the United States with a gun. I'd also love to see maybe a database format developed for us as I'm dealing with massive amounts of information and kind of, you know, like, I guess it's going to turn into big data for me. You know, I'm looking at things like, okay, do I need to assign like a file number to each case? You know, how do I make sure that I haven't already documented this woman besides sorting for their name and seeing if I've already got them on there? You know, something that could build an alert. So to almost, I use Airtable right now, but almost to have a database, you know, created that's very secure, where you're not going to lose information, where it automatically backs up. I started with Google Sheets and I was very uncomfortable with kind of how loosey-goosey and the lack of anybody to talk to. If I realized if I lost the information, I'd have nobody to talk to figure out what I would do. So I would love to see access to other types of data, and then also some sort of database itself that we could use to document cases in.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Is there anybody else who wants to share some thoughts about future development, technological development? ¿Alguien más? Elena, si quisiera compartir. Sí.
Elena?
Yes, we should be finishing now. So I'm going to invite my fellow panelists to be very concise, very brief. If you have something to say about the future, it will be good to say it now. Personally, thinking about what Dawn was saying, what Rosa was saying, as I said before, to me, producing this collection of data is a labor of care. And it's very important to think of, you know, who looks after those who look after, you know, the others. And these technologies help. But part of what Dawn said about this database, Silvana will get this, saying this has to do with standardization processes. I think that there could be an area to explore there. Would it be possible? Would it be desirable to have common databases that we could all use and comparing? For example, this is an open question that we can, a technological challenge for the future. I just wanted to ask that question very briefly. And then we can all say something and close this first part. Anybody else?
Anyone else? Hi. Yes, Nadia. I'm Nadia. I would like to share something about the sources that are non-official sources. We have collected information from Facebook, the network, because these are cases that are not published, and they are from their relatives who make the profiles demanding justice. So I don't know if it's possible. I really have no idea about this kind of tools, if it's possible to collect information from other sources that are not newspapers. So thank you so much, Nadia. Anyone else that would like to share a question, a proposal?
Munoz raised her hand.
I think.
Catherine, can you hear us? Yes. Okay. I cannot, my camera doesn't work, but I don't know if you can hear me. Yes. Okay. I'm from Chile. I believe that, well, some have mentioned their context. I believe that the context here is very important to understand. There is a structural discrimination here in Chile that's, well, it's also intersectional. Latin America, unfortunately, we have this color blindness that we believe that it means that racism doesn't exist, but actually it's the opposite. We just think that our only problems have to do with class, but no, but there's race there at the root. And these issues of race are structured around this racist hierarchies. And it's very difficult to progress in these areas. For example, regarding feminicide here in Chile, there are different types of lists or records of criteria for feminicide, depending on whether it's the government or an association or whatever, because there's lots of discrimination in law enforcement, in legal departments. In most cases, there are no convictions. The killers are on the loose. So I believe that if we don't tackle like this structural discrimination that's at the root of it, for example, in the case of the police, you know, I was talking to a judge some time ago, and she was telling me that there's not much they can do because, well, people usually don't, when they go and report something, the police, you know, they don't treat them very well. So if we don't tackle those issues, the data themselves could be dangerous, you know. And one other thing that someone mentioned here is that in Chile, just as in many other countries, feminicide there's an underlying reasons that have to do with gender and gender expression. And so trans women are also involved in this, and girls as well. Any of these people who are not included in the regular list of the official feminicide lists in Chile. So sometimes I wonder, I question myself, well, where there's elections here soon, so it is very likely that because of this process, there might be like this administration, this new like extreme right administration. So in that case, we think that data themselves could even be dangerous, you know.
Thank you so much, Catherine. We have time for one more question. Marisa Miodowski, the last question. Can anyone help me with, okay, with Marisa's mic? Marisa? Marisa, are you there? Okay. First of all, thank you for everything. Everything is very interesting. My question has to do with the impact of this data that we make available, the different organizations or databases, projects or websites make available, and the impact on those that produce statistics or official data, if they are considered as a relevant source of information, if they take into account the few information on the cases that how the official sources work with these databases.
I would like
can
to answer that.
Feminicide
Feminicide data live in a data ecology. You know, it's a very interesting concept. As I was studying feminicide data in Uruguay, I called it well, it was 2018. There were at least 5 different types of data around 25th November, which is the date where this information usually, you know, is distributed. And they were discordant. There were activist data, official data, other data. And well, among the activist data, there were different bits of information. The same happened in official records. And this in Uruguay, which is a very small ecology. Remember, we only have 3.5 million inhabitants. So media, the groups, it's very small, but there's a constant interaction of data among sources. They could be positive, but as Catherine said, it could also be really dangerous because it could lead to lack of trust in a source or doubts. It can also lead to competence between activists who are trying to push their own, you know, platforms or their demands for the state. So it's a very important issue. And as I said earlier in my presentation, there are some cases in which the states themselves are using these figures from activists to confirm and validate their own work, because there is great disorganization, also lack of communication between different areas of the state. For example, there's the courts, but then health, and then the police, and they're not communicating fluently. I believe that these tools support activist work, and they also help in the area of accountability, which is to respond, you know, and when states are not producing data, in that case, our counter data fulfills that need. But when the states are producing data, what our counter data does is to question the states. So we compare. It's a way of keeping the state accountable, you know. I saw that Victoria had raised her hand, but we have to finish, otherwise we won't have a break. So Angeles, back to you.
Okay, thank you everyone for the participation in the first part of the session. Lots of things to be said. We need to close this part and begin later the next second part of the session. Silvana, thank you everyone. Thank you, Angeles. Thank you to all the participants and share their experience. It has been very enriching, and thank you everyone on the YouTube channel. So we're saying goodbye for the moment. We are going to take a break, and we are going to take a 10 minutes break, and then we will resume later on the sharp time. As we said, it can be, I don't know, 10 past, or depending on the time of the world area where you are. YouTube channel, goodbye to you. This is the end of the transmission, live transmission. In this second part. So we are on time, Elena, Catherine. Okay, it's my turn. Well, hello again, everyone. In the next section, we are going to have 3 groups, one in English, one in Spanish, and one group in Portuguese. In each group, we are going to show how these tools work, and then we are going to install them and use them. When Catherine makes the breakout rooms, you will choose the room of your language, okay? So we have the participants from the pilot projects that are also in the groups, and they can also help us to understand the tools, but you can also be free to choose where. I think these are all the instructions for this moment. So Catherine is going to make the breakout rooms, and each participant will choose the room corresponding to her own language. And in that breakout room, that's the language to be spoken. Catherine will be the one, Catherine in English, I will be in Spanish, and Portuguese as well. We have its own leader. So the breakout rooms are available. As you can see in the back part of the screen, you have the breakout rooms. So if you can choose English, Spanish, Portuguese, if you cannot see that, let us know so we can work it out and assign you a group. The moderators for Portuguese, you can go directly to the breakout room and be with the participants there. Anyone that wants to speak in Portuguese, please go to that group.
Great. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Let's see. Sorry, just getting used to it. I'm wondering if, can people start their video? Oh yeah, they can. Okay. I wasn't sure if people could like unmute in the breakout room or not, but it looks like you can. Great. Hi, everyone. This is the English demo of the tools. And yeah, we have a good amount of people here. I just want to take a minute to introduce some important members of our team. So I'm Catherine D'Ignazio. I'm the director of the Data Plus Feminism Lab. And I also want to recognize Natasha, who, oh, actually, I think she's still in the process of joining. In a moment, will be joining us. She's a research assistant at the Data Plus Feminism Lab. Harini and Rahul, and Melissa are members of our team. Do you all just want to take a quick second and say hello and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Harini. I'm a PhD student at MIT, and I've been helping out with some of the tool development for this project. So yeah, really excited to be here and see you all.
Rahul, you want to take it?
Hi, my name is Rahul Bargov. I'm an assistant professor at Northeastern University in journalism, art, and design. And super excited to be here, and I play a role helping think about the technology architecture of the project and getting to sort of integrate pieces and think about how we get data in to help you all.
Melissa, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Tang. I'm a master's student in urban planning, and I'm working on a offshoot project involving artistic strategies and feminicide data, which I'll share with you all later on in the conference. That's great to see you all.
Great. So hello to all of you. Oh, sorry, I'm getting Zoom messages. It's hard to be the leading things and being a Zoom coordinator at the same time. And I also want to recognize Rosa and Dawn. Thank you for sticking around and coming to this. So we have some like great expertise in the room as well. And you all, like, if people have questions, can hopefully like fill in or contribute for how you have been using the tools. Oh, and here's Natasha. So Natasha, I just wanted to have you say hello and introduce yourself very briefly. Yeah.
Hi, I'm an RA with the Data Plus Feminism Lab at MIT. I'm also a master's student here, and I'm coming from Pakistan.
Awesome. Thanks, Natasha. So our agenda is we're going to do a couple, like I'll do a quick demo of each of our two tools, and then we'll have time after the demo for you all to get set up with the tools, and we'll be here to answer any of your questions about them. So because the first tool is a little simpler, it's that highlighter tool. So that one we're going to hopefully be able to do that in 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll spend the rest of the time on the email alert system. So I'm going to get started by sharing my screen. 1 second. Okay. So here I am currently in the Chrome browser. And so this is the tool that's the highlighting tool. And one of the things you'll note, so I'm currently on a web, on the New York Times, like looking at news in English. And one of the things you'll notice is that the proper names, not all of them. This tool isn't perfect, as all tools are, but we try to highlight like proper names and places, times, dates, and then other kinds of custom words, years, names, and so on. So that's where these highlights are coming from. These highlights are coming from our tool. And so the way that this works is called a browser extension, which for those of you who may not know, this is like a little web application that you put in your browser. And so for right now, this only works with the Chrome browser. And so shortly, we're going to actually send you this link, and you're going to be able to install this browser extension. So you basically do it by going to the Chrome store. And I already have it installed, but it would say here like install, and then you click install. And then once it installs in your browser, you can see that it'll show up as this little green heart right here, and it should show up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And that's the way that you activate the application, and also the way that you adjust the settings. So we can see right now that it's on because it's actually highlighting these articles. But if I open this up, this is the kind of settings window. I can actually turn it off, so it's not highlighting anymore. And if you're just doing your normal news browsing, you're not actually looking for cases or scanning news articles, you can always just turn it off. But of course, right now we're demoing the tool, so we're going to turn it on. And here you can see that it's actually color coded for the types of things that it's looking for to highlight. So we can see that names are in green, places are in blue, numbers, dates, ages in yellow, and these custom words are in pink. So I could actually take off, if I'm like, oh, I don't really want places, I could take those off. If I don't really want the dates, I could take those off. Like, let's say if I'm just looking for names or something like that. And you can also customize the color. So if you wanted names to always be highlighted with, say, magenta or something like that, you can do that. And then those would change color. I'm going to show that on something we can see. And that should update in just a second. So those are really the main options that people work with most frequently. I know for Dawn and maybe for Rosa too, that you all use the custom words a lot. And I think that's what Viri from SBI was also saying. And so actually, maybe I'll ask Dawn or Rosa, do y'all want to say, what do you use the custom highlighting for? Like what words do you put in that custom box?
Dawn, you can go.
Oh, sure. So I put things like, you know, shot, stabbed, strangulation, conviction, husband, boyfriend, you know, and if you put like husband or boyfriend, you don't have to put X because it'll, you know, it gets all of that. Any of those kind of things. And sometimes I'll put it in there and just temporarily and then remove it. And, you know, because I just am looking at one particular aspect of something and I don't want it, you know, I just want to look at it temporarily, but it's very helpful.
It's great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dawn.
Yeah, saves a lot of time.
And so these are the, oh, sorry, Rosa, do you want to chime in on that as well?
I was actually agreeing with Dawn. I usually put the same words in there, and the time saver has, I mean, I'm telling you, it's a lifesaver for me.
It's awesome. So great to hear. It's really heartwarming to hear when you were presenting, actually. So these are really the main settings that you might be working with on a day-to-day basis. There are these settings here. If you click on this gear icon, there are some more generalized settings that you will probably have to basically only do once ever. So this is where you set the language. I think by default it installs in English, but we also have the highlighter in Spanish and Portuguese. And then I'm gonna come back to this in a second because what I want to show you, this was something that was requested by activists, you know, often as they're reading news articles, looking for these different data, then they're doing like copy and paste operations. So it's like you find a relevant thing, like let's say the year that a particular event happened, and then you want to be like, oh, okay, I want to copy that, and then I want to paste it in my database. And so often people are working with their window side by side doing the copy paste. And so what this open my database link does, actually, I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see this.
Catherine, I think you may have to share your entire screen in order to show the data popping up.
Okay, let me, thanks, Harini. Yes, let me do that. Yeah, because what it does is it opens a whole new window for you. So here's desktop. Share. Okay. Do y'all see this? This is actually not my, I don't have a Feminicide database, but let's imagine this were my, this is like my budget. There we go. Let's imagine this is my Feminicide database. This is actually what it's linked to right now. Basically what it does is it opens these two windows on top of each other so that I can easily go from one, like say I want to get this 2019 and I want to come here, paste it. Maybe I want to get this Buffalo link. That event happened in Buffalo. Oops, didn't copy correctly. Paste. For some reason it's not copying. And so that's what this database link is for, if that makes sense. Okay, let me move you off there a little bit. Okay. And so basically when you click on that open my database, it sets up a new window. And you'll note that my window is on top of the article window, but you can actually change those settings. You can have it open your database either above. So mine's set to open it above the news article that I'm looking at, but you can also say below, to the left, or to the right. So if we do that, let's like close this. And then if now I say open my database, Oh, it's mine's a little messed up because I'm working across two screens, but it would basically do like this. So it opened these two windows side by side. It's hard to demo when I'm on multiple screens, but I think you all get the idea. Now, you're probably saying, how does it know where my database is? And that is the other thing that you configure here in the settings. So let me make that a little bit bigger. We go back to our gear, into our settings. You'll see I've set up one database link. You can actually configure multiple databases. Here's where you would add another database link. So Catherine's second database will go here. And then here I will copy the link, and really we just mean, literally the link to that spreadsheet. So you would copy the, it's not going to work right here, but sheets. Here, let's do it. Imagine this is your database. We would just copy the link from here and paste it here. And then we have a second database link. And then we're almost at the end, because again, this tool is fairly straightforward. The one last thing I wanted to show is that we do have the ability for folks, this was requested by folks, to be able to email articles to people. So as you all can see, lots of folks doing this work know each other. They know of other projects, like Rosa and Dawn know each other, and they share information, and Dawn may be sending cases to Rosa that she knows are relevant for her database and vice versa. So we added this ability to set up contacts, basically just email addresses. And then if I'm on this news article here, I'm like, oh, this is a great one for Rosa. Then I would come here, check Rosa's name and say share. And then it basically just opens up my email application, places the URL in there. And then you can just click send and send it to that person. And you can add a little note if you want to explain why you're sending it to them if they wouldn't otherwise. Remember that technology is always imperfect. So those of us who work a lot with technology know this. There will definitely be bugs. There will definitely be news sites where the highlighter works sort of imperfectly. We're trying to do our best to kind of like suck in the text and highlight all the proper names and the dates and things like that. But there'll be places where it doesn't work. If that happens, we request that you drop us an email with the URL of the website that isn't working for you. And that's something that we can be working on fixing, because we're trying to make it work across basically all news sites. But there's always more work to be done there. Maybe Harini, do you want to add anything else that I missed or that we should say about the highlighter before we open it up for people to install it?
I don't think so. I think you covered most of it. But I'm sure that people will maybe have questions as they are trying to use it. So just, yeah, if anything comes up, we can like address them. But I think you covered most of the main features.
Great. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to paste in the chat. Here's the link to the Chrome store. So we're going to have folks open your Chrome browser and then use Chrome to go to that link that I just pasted. And there's where you'll be able to install the tool. And so I would say, let's everyone just try that. So we'll have like maybe 5 minutes for everyone to do that, ask questions. If you run into any problems installing it, this is the time where we can help you troubleshoot and so on. And if you have any general questions or want to chat about it, we can also just be doing that as people install. How many folks were able to install it okay? Yeah, yeah, great, great. Excellent. Any questions before we move to the other tool? Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
Just one question on language settings. Is there any possibility to have all languages together? I mean, if you are browsing different things and you want to get maybe English and Spanish together, not only on one page, but since maybe you are browsing more the articles.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I can see that being very relevant for some groups. Not at the moment. So at the moment you have to choose one or the other. But I think that's a super interesting idea where we could potentially have bilingual or more languages. Harini, I don't know if you want to comment on that idea too.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I think I lost you for a second, but yeah, okay, you're back. I think for that use case, yeah, it's not the most, like you can't, at the moment, you can't set it to give results in both languages, but if you just go to the settings page and change the language, like if you're switching between pages in different languages, you can also just change the language, like open it up and go to the settings and change the language, and that will, like, I guess what I'm saying is that you can do it, but you have to manually change the language. But that's a great feedback of something that maybe we could do in the future, like to automatically detect the language and then just produce results, like just return the correct results. But on one note, I guess, is when you do change the language, you just have to reload the page once to make sure that it like refreshes the correct entities. Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Yeah, I love that idea of automatically detecting the language. That would be really cool. Okay, you all. So I think we'll move now to the alerts tool, which is just a little bit more complicated, but hopefully not in any burdensome way. I'll demo, and then we'll have a time where you all can make accounts and set up your own projects. 1 second. So this is our Data Against Feminicide email alerts tool. Don't be overwhelmed by all of these. I'm a member, like my account is a member of basically like all projects, because we've been trying to help different groups troubleshoot their projects and their queries and stuff like that. So your thing here would probably only have like 1 or 2 projects, whatever you have set up to be monitoring, and then 1 or 2 projects would show up here in your dashboard, basically. And so what is a project? So each time you have a specific kind of violence that you monitor in a specific geography with a specific language, that's a project probably. And most groups have 1 project, but there are some groups that, for example, are monitoring both LGBTQ killings and feminicide. And so they might separate those out so they could search for those types of violence separately and get email alerts about those types of violence separately. So that's one thing to think about as you're creating a project. And so I'm going to show you just one of my test projects. So this is a project that I have set up that's just monitoring feminicide in the state of Massachusetts. When I come into it, actually is not showing anything recently, but maybe I'll look back in time. So I just searched the history of the email alerts that I've received. And from October of 2021 till present, I've received the various articles that are showing up on this page. And these have come to me both in this is a web-based interface, like a dashboard that you can go to on the web. But all of these articles have also arrived to me as a daily email alert. So you can see here, I have my project set up to give me email alerts once a day. So as these cases get detected, then they arrive to me once a day. But other groups do not necessarily want to see these every day, and so you can also set it up so your email arrives like once a week or something like this. And so what you get here is you get the headline of the article, including a link to the article. What date was it published? And then what date did our system collect it? And this is really important to know because we try to get it as real time as possible. And actually that's a feature that folks have requested. But we do need time. We're working with our partner organization, Media Cloud, that Rahul is here representing actually, which is a very large database of news media articles and also this very large spidering and scanning system, which is going out on the web and collecting all sorts of articles every single day. So there is something of a delay. So there's usually about a day period of delay for when an article is published and then by when it makes it into the system. So for each article, you have when it was published, when it was collected, the count. So one of the things that we did in response to activists' requests was to do our best to try to group articles that are about a similar case. You can see this one is just this one article, but like here, we have 3 articles about this prosecutors say Massachusetts woman murdered a man as a gift. She says it was self-defense. And so we can see that this was reported in 3 different news outlets here. And so this can sometimes be useful to understand, like, you know, when something's getting a lot of media attention, you can kind of see like everybody's reporting on it, or other things may get like 1 article or something like that. I'm just trying to see if there's any burst that got a lot. No, most of these are like 1 to 3 news articles. But sometimes you'll get cases which are, for whatever reason, like very widely reported on, and they'll have like 10 different news media articles. And then, you know, from here, it's basically up to you, the human being, the situation, to say, is this or is this not a case that I'm interested in? So some of these you can sort of tell from the headline. Others of these you would have to go look. So like mistrial declared in case of man charged in 18 deaths. This is something, if you're monitoring feminicide specifically, we would need to go read this article and understand more about his relationship to the people that were murdered or killed. A murder of a 2-year-old girl. This looks potentially relevant, unfortunately, and this is horrific. But you see what I'm saying? You can kind of scan these headlines, but ultimately you'll have to go and read the article to determine if this is a case that's relevant for the type of violence you're monitoring. And so let's say it is. One of the ways that you can provide feedback to our system to tell it what you care about is by telling us, is this relevant for you or not? And this is a new feature we're experimenting with, partially because of trying to help folks like SBI, APF, ROSA, and others who are monitoring sort of very specific forms of feminicide, or sometimes monitoring beyond the frame of feminicide, so monitoring like two-spirit people or transgender people. This helps us like train the project to be more sensitive to what the people behind it actually care about. So this is the dashboard setup. The way that this works typically so this is an existing project, but what I would do to create a new project is I would go down here and say, create a new project. And let's say this is Catherine's, I'll just say Catherine's United States project. It's helpful to put the organization name here, and that's more actually for us, so we can tell whose project is whose. We can contact you if we want to like see something that's amiss. We select the language. So right now we support English and Spanish. We are working with some of the groups in Brazil to include Portuguese very soon. We actually have it translated. We just have to integrate it. Here, we just have a couple regions right now, but we would ask folks who are starting to use the system, maybe tell us what your region is, and then we can help adjust the settings. Right now, we have to do it kind of manually on the back end, but if you're monitoring from like Peru or Canada or something like that, that's something we can adjust on the back end. Here you will put in your time zone, and here's where you set what time of day do you want to receive your email alert. So that just created a new project. From there, there's a couple other settings inside of your project. So actually now I'm in this project setup. So I just made this new project, and there's a couple of other things that I can tweak in order to start doing my my scanning and collecting. So first of all, many of you work in collaboration with others, so you can share the project and both have access to the project. So here's where you would add anybody who you're working with. You do have to make sure they already have an account in the system. So like I can add Harini. Oh, I forgot Harini, what's your email address? But anyway, it'll tell me if I try to add Harini and her email's not in the system, then it'll say she needs an account. So they just need to create an account. There's a really important button right here that I want to draw your attention to. Before you'll start to get email alerts on your project, you have to click this button, start. So you're not going to get any, like if you're like, oh, I set up my whole project and I just have waited like 3 or 4 days and I haven't received any information, you may not have hit the start collection button. So I'm going to say start the collection. And then the last thing here is you can see for your locale, what are the media sources that it's checking. This would be if you wanted to add additional media sources. Again, that has to be done through us, but we're really happy to do this and expand the set of media that we're monitoring. And then here, this is where you may end up spending a good amount of your time to try to make your the system more precise to work for you. This is where you might modify your query. And so the query is what, it's just very similar to like a Google search. This is what will pull an initial set of articles from the backend system. And that's where those are like starting points, which then get run through our filters and ultimately arrive in your email inbox. And so this is a kind of a default query that we have set up from our work with the various activist groups. But this is something that you all, depending on what you're monitoring, may want to modify this. And I don't know if like Dawn or Viri or Rosa want to comment on this or like talk a little bit about their queries and if you made any modifications and why or anything like that. Oh, Dawn, I think you're muted.
I think what I did was use the basic bones of the query that had already been made for me, the general one, and then kind of test it out, putting in other terms instead of, whatever search term. And then just made sure to keep it exactly the same structure. And that seemed to work because I did that for cold cases and for some murder-suicide cases.
And do you have, John, I seem to remember you have separate projects for those. Is that right? You have like
Yeah.
a project for cold cases and a project.
Exactly, yeah. Because I'm documenting women going back to 1950. And there's so many, especially genetic genealogy cases, cases that are solved that way coming out. It does catch quite a few cases. And what's really nice is, obviously, because most of us work full time and we're overwhelmed, even if I've got a week or something that I can't deal with new cases, I'm working on old ones, I can always go back and look at the calendar and change the dates to get any information I might have missed. So
great. I can't see, is it Viri, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Viri, I was just gonna ask you because just if you could comment too, because I know like that what you were talking about, for example, in the larger panel discussion, Also is like one of the challenges here with the queries, just because of the media reporting bias against Indigenous women. I don't know if you want to maybe just say more about how like, it's like even with the best query, there's these inherent biases that like will not surface articles if the articles don't exist.
Right, or even just like people not really knowing how to document or the kind of language that we use to like specify Native Americans, and like you said, those articles won't surface. And
yeah, so that's just something to be tuned into as you use these tools, is like they can do what they can do, but there are limits. And when you make a query, you aren't necessarily using the language that you would use to describe a phenomenon. You're trying to get at language that the media would use to describe a phenomenon. So like, you know, I mean, we have in this query femicide or feminicide, but as Don was saying, in the United States, we don't even tend to use these terms, and certainly the media like almost like never uses those terms. But that's why they're here in like femicide or feminicide or just, you know, murdered or these other categories. You can put in language that you would use to describe it, but then you should try to maybe like put yourself in the perspective of the media for trying to capture what the media, how the media frames this phenomenon. Rosa, I don't know, did you want to add anything there? Any tips that you found useful for your project?
I'll be right back, guys. As far as the it's been good. Everything that you have like in that search bar, and Dawn says, because remember when we were having the pilot, I'm sorry, let me turn this down. When we were having the pilot, I was actually having problems with the search. But when you told me how to divide it and put it in, that's why I said, after that, my searches have just flown. I get a lot of hits now. And because initially when I was getting a lot of email alerts, a lot of it really didn't apply to me. But now it applies to me. I still get some news links that, you know, that are hit or miss, but I would say anywhere from 75 to 80% of the time now that I have the same search terms in. I really don't have to change any of my search terms. But I did change it for when I was doing something for a friend of mine who actually does transgender stuff. And I actually put in Black trans women, and I was amazed how very, very good the search was for her.
Oh, that's really great to hear.
So it actually is good. And actually, you know, maybe, you know, this information might be useful to some people if you want to take it, but using this search, she was able to count 47 Black trans women who have been murdered this year.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yes.
And Catherine, something that you pointed out that I think is very important is that, like, you're probably always going to need human eyes to go through the cases because, and you know, just kind of a warning, not every case that's going to show up is really a femicide. A lot of drive-by shootings, you can't really, unless it's, you know, a boyfriend drove by and a woman, his ex-girlfriend or whatever, is standing in the middle of a group of people, and there's evidence that he deliberately targeted that person. So, you know, when you strictly look at doing research and documenting femicide, you know, not just like a kind of widespread, I'm not just documenting all women who have been murdered in the United States. I'm documenting women who were murdered and targeted by men as the result of gender-based violence, you know. So, and conversely, sometimes things that might not on their face appear to be femicides, like burglaries, you know, what the heck does breaking into a woman's house and killing her have to do with femicide? Well, sometimes that woman's been targeted because she's female. Sometimes there's a sexual component with burglary, and it's an activity that we see as a precursor of men who break in and rape and murder women. So it does take a critical eye to look at, like, unfortunately on my database, there's a lot of African-American women who are killed who are not strictly speaking femicide, a lot of drive-by shootings, a lot of unsolved murders where, it probably is a man, but we don't even know who it is. So we can't even talk about motive, so that, that's just kind of a warning that just because it shows up here, you still have to take that additional step if you are documenting femicide to make sure that it fits that criteria.
Yeah, and like when you said about, that is true, like a drive-by, something like that can't be considered. Now, there was a case where I did include it because a group of guys specifically targeted like 5 women who were sitting on a stoop.
Sure.
And, they, I think 3 of them died. And the young man who shot his pregnant girlfriend and then killed her mother and her mother's partner, things like that. But like you said, you have to have human eyes to be able to parse the difference.
Yeah. And even with mass shootings, I will literally count up the number of male and female victims. So if it's a mass shooting and there's 75 victims and 70 of those or 50 of those are women, then I'm kind of thinking they probably targeted women. So it does take that additional step of sort of, that critical thinking it through to see that it meets those criteria.
Great. Thanks, you all. I think those are super important points. And it illustrates too why, the human portion of this is really necessary. So, and actually I think, and it's also one of the things we heard from Elena, is the human portion is so necessary also because of the way in which folks who are collecting these data are sort of caring for them and see it as a way of memorializing people as well. So I think let's go. Wait, our time is running out. It's short. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paste the link to make a new account in the chat. When you get there, it's gonna look like this, and you're gonna say create new account. Type in all your information, and then you should be able to get into the system. So basically, like, your task from here is to go to the link, make an account. Try setting up your first project, and then we'll take it from there, basically. And we're here to answer any questions or like hiccups as you go along the way. And I do just want to say one thing about this. We are opening up the account creation stage basically for today. And then after today, we're going to close it down again because we are still kind of wanting to keep some we want to basically just be building relationships with all of you who are doing this, making sure that it serves your needs. It's still pretty beta, this technology, so it's not quite public ready. So we would welcome you to use the tool, to invite people that you know to use the tool. And if they can't get access, you can tell us about it. But it isn't going to be public still quite yet until we make sure that it is working. So here's that caveat. Here's the link, and hopefully everyone can set up their account and a project from there.
And Catherine, just to make sure, that's for people who are new to the system. I don't have to redo it.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, you, Dawn, Barry, you all have accounts. So you don't have to do anything there.
Okay.
Oh, did someone have a question? It looks like someone's hand is raised, but I can't see who. Oh, Jackie, did you have a question?
Yeah, it was just something, it's more of a comment, something I was thinking about with the, if a page doesn't work or there's an error, I'm wondering if maybe having the option to send the article via the share option on the extension.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, just so it's like, yeah, just so it's like automatic and like, you know, if we're new and we're still experimenting, like, not having to remember the email address of the particular person we want to send it to.
Yeah. No,
would be
that's
great.
such a great idea. Yeah, thanks. And this is good because we're getting good feature ideas.
And then just a second thing, I'm not sure if this is just for me or everyone else, but my chat's been disabled. So I didn't know if that was a.
Oh, right, really? Oh. Let's see if there's like a setting. Oh,
Which if that was intentional, that's totally understandable. I just.
No, not at all, actually.
It's nice for us more introverted people to slide into the chat.
No, totally. Does any Zoom expert know anything I can do? I like don't see the button. Normally in the big session, I can see the button to say like permissions on it, but for some reason it's disabled. Gosh, I'm sorry, you all. Yeah, maybe if you don't mind, sorry about that. Yeah, if you don't mind, like raising your hand or just unmuting and talking. Sorry.
So Catherine, I was just curious, did we ever figure out if it was possible, like as we're looking through articles and we're finished with them and like we don't necessarily, some of them we'd want to just trash and get rid of and get out of there because we know for sure they don't apply, but also maybe the ability to archive, because I would still like to keep articles, you know, to be able to archive them, to get them out of that inbox so it's less cluttered. I notice sometimes as I'm going through, I'm like scanning through all these articles and I'm like, okay, where did I leave off? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we have that logged as a feature and we didn't have time to implement that in the round of stuff we did this summer, but I still think that's a good idea for folks that it seemed to be sort of split, like half the people were using that dashboard view on the website and then the other half were doing mostly from email too. So it seemed to be split for who was actually like using the website. I'll keep that on our list because even if I guess we could even indicate it visually, right? Like we could make it less, like one thing would be bold and one thing would be not bold. Or
exactly.
Like, so you can see what you've looked at.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. As we're having folks installing things and like setting up their projects, Raj, you weren't here at the beginning, but we just had team members introduce themselves. So Raj, do you want to maybe say hello and tell folks what you're working on?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm
sorry it's a cold call on you.
No, yeah, no worries. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Raj. I'm also working with the Data and Feminism Lab with Catherine and Harini. Yeah, I've kind of been working on developing some models to improve the relevance of some of our like intersectionally specific feminicide predictors. So for example, for Black women killed by the police or Indigenous women who are missing or murdered, some of our default feminicide models aren't sort of directly applicable because of the different languages used to describe those cases. So I'm trying to kind of adapt our models to be more specific.
Thanks, Raj.
Thank you for your help. It's amazing.
Yeah, Harini and Raj in particular have been doing some really great work that we are hoping to be in touch. Very and Marina, actually, is Marina here? Marina's not in ours. I think she went to the Portuguese one, but we're hoping to be in touch with SBI and AAPF soon with some tests that hopefully are improved for relevance for their articles. So stay tuned, basically. Yeah. So we have about like 7 minutes left. I wonder, have folks been able to get in, make an account, make a project? Any hiccups, questions, feature ideas? I didn't even think this was going to be surfacing feature ideas, but it is, so that's great. So, because our time is short.
Hi, so I have a quick question, I
Sure.
assume. So I was wondering, because it's for creating a new project, you need to add an organization name. So I was wondering if you can add no organization, like I would like to do this independently. I should add a specific?
Yeah, you can just leave it blank.
Oh, okay, because it says it's required.
Oh, does it? Oh, I think we may have recently made it required. In that case, you can just make up an organization. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. No one's like checking on it. Like the only reason we use that is for us who are like building the tools to make sure we know whose project is which, because we're supporting a bunch of different groups and then we were getting confused whose projects for which project, so we could support them better, basically. So it's a very internal thing. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And also the project region. I remember you said something about it. Can we add anything or?
Well, so right now the only regions on there are United States, Uruguay, and Argentina. What is your region? Like, what region would you want to be monitoring?
Chile.
Chile. Okay. So that's something that we will just add, basically. Okay. Would you mind? Well, I'm going to write it down. So we'll add that shortly. It just means for on our end, this is why we're not releasing this completely publicly, because once you tell us Chile, we can add that and then we can make it so on the back end it's just looking at media collected from Chile, so it's relevant to your geographic region.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, Amelia, my apologies. Amelia, I want you to introduce yourself.
I'm on a train, so like I don't know if you can actually hear me, or my video probably won't work because of bandwidth. But I'm Amelia. I worked on the original pilot. I'm an undergrad at MIT, and I'm helping a little bit with Prize and Harini still, and I'm also looking at social media practices at Feminicide data activists.
Thanks, Amelia. My apologies. I missed you in the chat. So.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Chiara. I have a question regarding the project region. I am from Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is a Commonwealth of the United States. If I select the United States, is Puerto Rico there?
Yes. I think there are some Puerto Rican news sources in that collection. However, if the geography you're monitoring is Puerto Rico specifically, we should make a region for you. I'm assuming, do you want to monitor in Puerto Rico and not like the continental United States? Yeah. So yeah, my suggestion would be we should create a region for you, and then we can set that up on the back end. And maybe I'll ask Rahul, do you know off the top of your head, does Media Cloud have Puerto Rico specific collections?
Yeah, we do have a Puerto Rico specific collection. Again, it might be something that we can work together with you to build out better.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So yeah, Chiara, what that means when we set that up, we can send you the list of the Puerto Rican sources that it monitors. And then if you see ones that are missing, you can basically tell us and we can add them, because the media cloud system, like we have a base to start with for most countries, but then, you know, it's not always going to be the most up to date or the most relevant for this specific monitoring task, basically.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Would it possible to also add European countries, or do you think this is not the case because of, I mean, the focus is Americas only?
Well, our focus is Americas, but what countries?
I mean, it's huge. It's not only, but of course, just so that if it is scalable.
Where are you coming from?
I'm in Italy.
In Italy. The only issue right now, there's a couple pieces to it on the back end. So we actually do have, I think, a media collection, if I'm not mistaken, for Italy, but what we don't have yet in Italian is we train this like machine learning model for each region and country specifically. And that's the part that we don't have. So Italy would be not yet. Spain, actually, we could do because of, I think, some of the language similarities, but and Portugal probably too, since we are in developing the Portuguese language model. But if that's of interest, like I would say you should just be in contact, like drop us a line over email. We should be in contact. Ultimately, we would love to be able to support more like as many languages as we could, basically. And each time we support a new language or region, we try to have partners that we can work with so that we can train the model in a way that is relevant for their context. And the activists like you all are, and like Don, Rosa, Viri, are the ones who have the most expertise in their particular region and their particular thing that they're monitoring. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think we're about to close the group. Any last like super fast question? If not, maybe I'll just say, again, just to emphasize, it's sort of still all very kind of beta. But one of our goals is to be continuing to create this network of people. Like, so we are interested in sort of having a relationship with you all. We're interested in you connecting with each other and building those relationships, and ultimately to strengthen this kind of monitoring to hopefully lead towards prevention and the end of this violence. So yeah, I really thank you for showing up and just to be in touch with us. And I don't want to speak for Don, Rosa, and Viri, but maybe, I don't know if you all want to, if people could contact you, if you would be open to that. I was really touched about Rosa talking about Don's mentorship, and I know that's been true for other folks in the network. So
yeah, please reach out, and anytime. And I like to learn from other people too, because I think there's always easier ways to do things, and maybe things that I'm not focusing on that are important. So we can learn from each other.
True, but you're a hard act to follow, Dawn. I have to say that.
Well, you can't see all my gray hair right now, but yeah.
Well, put the gray hair filter in the Zoom.
Yeah, one thing that does help is, especially going backwards, is, when you want to give up, just practically speaking, it is a finite amount of information. I mean, once I've documented, 1982, there's only so many that I can find or document. So there is an end in sight for the kind of work that I'm doing, but then I know this is going to be the 6th year that I'm doing this on New Year's Day. And, every day on New Year's Day, there's a especially large amount of women murdered, and, you're starting over another year. And I guess somewhere you think maybe this year will be better, but unfortunately, I think that often that's not the case. And anecdotally, recently, it's gotten even worse. So, yeah. So I'm going to try to start a nonprofit so I can pay people to help, because volunteers, don't usually last, and I can completely understand why. But yeah, it's
Dawn,
a lot of women.
I can say this, with part of the GoFundMe that I've started, that's what I'm using to start my nonprofit. I really think you should do a GoFundMe, because I thought that people wouldn't be willing to help, but
Yeah.
people are extremely supportive and help. And if you start a GoFundMe, I'm definitely donating, and I'll share it with everyone who's donated to me.
Well, thank you. And I know there's people out there who know how to start nonprofits and know how to do that work. So it's been great. So many people have, reached out, and yeah, it's very important. And every time we have a major case, of course, people tend to pay attention to it, but then it kind of fades in the background again. And but I do see a little tiny steps being taken moving forward. So I'm very grateful to be a part of this group and to learn from everyone.
Thank you, Dawn. And I just want to say, yeah, for anyone who's doing like GoFundMe's or any of these kind of campaigns, if you join the Slack that Silvana was talking about earlier, that would be a great place to post those as well, because I think lots of people in this community would be really interested to support these efforts. So yeah. Great. All right, you all.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, I was like, I didn't know if you were talking. Well, so I just want to say, please stick around for just a couple more minutes. We're gonna go back to the main room, because we have a group, including you'll see just this really super short presentation where folks are calling for your examples of people who have used data about feminicide in very creative ways, and ways, in artistic ways, and they're going to be talking about that. And then we'll be saying goodbye very shortly. So thanks everybody, and look forward to being in touch with you further. And I think we'll leave and go back to the breakout.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, un momento que esperamos.
One moment, please. We're waiting for everyone to return from the rooms in the different languages.
Silvana, estamos aquí.
Silvana, we're here, the English room. We have returned. Yes, I saw you. Just sent a message to the groups, especially the Spanish one. I think it's the most populated one, but they can round up. Can we close the breakout rooms? We can give them some time to round up, their ideas, and not interrupt them as they are speaking. So we should wait, I don't know, a few minutes. And And we're back. The Spanish group is returning. I think we're ready. I'm going to present the art and Feminicide project. Can we close the breakout rooms so we force them to return? Sometimes we don't know how to get out. It was very hard for me to leave the room.
Ok, ya está. ¿Todos están? Sí. Ok.
Okay.
Entonces, déjame, yo voy a compartir.
I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. We don't have a lot of time left, so we want to share this presentation about a new project, art and feminicide data. This project, we have very few minutes to present this project, and then we're going to close the activity. I hope that you had a good session and you were able to learn how to use the tools. I highlighted this in our session. These tools are a work in progress. It's a process. We need to stay in touch with you, make sure that they work for you. So if there's any problem, any doubts, issues, you can contact us. We can discuss it. We're still on a better stage. And now I want to introduce 3 people, very good people, Melissa, Alexis, and Jimena. They are going to talk about this very interesting, very nice project that they have involving art and feminicide data. You have the floor. Oh, and please let me know when I have to change the slides. Okay.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Melissa, I can't see Melissa. Is she there?
All right. Déjame ver. Melissa, are you there? Oh, she might not be co-host. Hold on. Debe estar co-host para desmutear.
She's muted. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Melissa, can you speak now? Sorry about that. That's my fault.
No worries. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I know we're over time, so we'll try to be really quick about this. But like Catherine said, I am here with Jimena. I am a student in the Data Plus Feminism Lab. Jimena is a curator in Mexico City. And we're both interested in issues relating to gender equality, art and design. So together, we have been collecting examples of artists who have been using feminicide data, as well as activists who are using artistic strategies for social justice. And we wanted to share with you an example from Mexico City. Are you controlling the slides, Catherine? Okay, so I'll let you know when to progress.
So on the morning of March 8th, in 2020, 10 members of the Colectiva SJF met in Mexico City Central Civic Plaza, El Zócalo. In huge letters, they started painting the names of feminicide victims from 2016 to 20, using Maria Salguero's data set and other public data sources. In painting these names, the artist transformed the Zócalo into a site of contested memory. In the next 6 hours, over 200 women joined them in painting about 250 names. In this way, the piece was a collective performance. The plaza was chosen because it is the end point for the Women's March. Later that day, 80 to 150,000 people marched from the Monumento de la Revolución to the Zócalo. By placing this data set of names in the middle of the old city, in front of the Palacio Nacional and the cathedral, it forced the state and the church to bear witness to the violence.
Next slide, please. So this is the plaza during the march. Next slide, please. So instead, after 24 hours, the names were washed away. Marta Munoz, a member of Colectiva SJF, said, "We weren't surprised. We knew they would do this. That's why we made sure to document." Marta also said, "We were sick of seeing the feminicide problem through statistics. We wanted to humanize these women." So humanizing feminicide data is a common motivation in other art examples that we've found. We are interested in collecting examples of artworks like this to better understand how people are using artistic strategies to share feminicide data and talk about this issue. We hope to eventually create a resource for activists and artists, starting with artists in Latin America. So next slide, please. So we invite you to share with us examples of artists or artworks that you've come across that use feminicide data. We also invite you to talk with us about these examples if you want to leave your contact information. And you can use this link to share your examples, or if you want, you can share them in the chat here or direct message me or Jimena. So that's it. We look forward to talking with you and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Muchas gracias. Ahora Elena.
Sí, muchísimas gracias. Me encanta ese.
Thank you so much. We talk about art as well. Thank you for this. Last thing to remember. The course aims for people that are already gathering information. Some of you have already, perhaps you may think that maybe doubting, but go to the website datoscontrafeminicidio.net/curso, and you can find more information and decide whether it's for you or not. And we are willing to offer you all the possibilities, answer all your questions. Some of you wrote last year about the periods for the workshops and the conversations that we had. There was something mentioned about a diploma on data against feminicide, but this is a first step on that trail. This is an instance for sharing all the information that we have. So datoscontrafeminicidio.net/course. Thank you. So Silvana, how do we go on? Basically, what we want to say now is that thank everyone that has participated and helped us in this session. We already mentioned all the people that are part of the different teams that are part of data and feminicide, but we also want to thank the interpreters that have been working in Portuguese, English, and Spanish channels that have helped us to come through these conversations in the different languages, regardless of the language that you speak. But thanks to Patricia, Anna, Marisa, Mariana for your work for the second time, for the second year. Last year you were with us and this year again. So thanks to them for their work. And if you need them, you have the contact data there to get in touch with them. So regardless of the course, the directory of information, and these people about art and feminicide, all the examples that of the people that are participating in all this and what they are doing, the challenges and the things that they have overcome day by day, and what all these makes to achieving better results in what we are doing, and makes us better person, especially as women. So these are the communication channels. You can include your data in the directory. You have there the link for your projects through the website as well. There you also have the recording of the YouTube channel recording for the first session of this morning. And then we will upload the different versions in English and Portuguese as well. If you want a more direct conversation, you can get in touch directly with us. We want to thank all the agencies and organizations that have supported us over the years. You have the information there, their logos, their names. Thank you, Juan Diego and Andrea, for the communication support you have provided. I think that the only thing that remains to be said is thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your attention, being here, listening to people talking and contributing. We really hope to continue working together. And I also want to thank Angeles, who helped us in the panel, Isa, Luciana, Natasha, Mariel, who wasn't able to join us, but she's having a very happy day. A very special hello from Mariel, because this will be recorded somewhere, so all the best for her. The whole team of Data Plus Feminism Lab, thank you so much. They're really committed and devoted to our project. So thank you very much.